Before we do kick off, is there anyone who would like us to touch on anything specific in this session? Whether that's customization or using dictation properly or anything like that?
Yeah, hi, Damien Smith. Maybe just run through use of macros and setting up macros would be great.
No problem. That's definitely something that we can do. Is there anything else that anyone would like to see specifically? Maybe not. We can just run through everything and I can get through macros. And we also have 3 new features that are actually coming out tomorrow. So I can give you guys some early access to them and show you how you can get the most out of them. So hopefully that will be quite cool. And so for the first 15 minutes, it would be great to kind of go through just a quick demo of the product for those who haven't used it before. And then we can do customization for the next 15 minutes. And then for the following 15 minutes, we can go through preferences and what that can look like with the new customization settings as well. And then leave the last 15 minutes for any questions, any customization help that you need as well. That's where we find that the time is best spent to help you guys. We might just kick off. I will just share my screen. Can everyone see my screen here?
Yep.
Amazing. Before we do jump in, is everyone right now on a trial for Lyrebird and have just begun using the platform? Sorry, I can't see many people's faces, so I'll just assume that everyone is on trial.
Yes, I'm coming to the end of my month, but because of I only work 2 days and I've been sick and things, so really haven't felt like I'm across it yet, and that I'd be likely to renew. So yeah, here to see if I can work
No
that
worries.
out. Really?
No, for sure. Yeah, no worries. That's totally okay. So I think what would be great is if we just run through consult, and I think there might be a few things in there where you might not actually know that they're actually accessible in the platform. So we can just do a quick mock consult and a quick mock dictation, and then I can show you the full extent of what you can do in Lyrebird. So before we do kick off, it is a lot more fun to do these with a mock consult or a mock patient, or I can be the mock patient because I'm not the best doctor, especially over Zoom. Would anyone like to volunteer and be that person? Be the doctor for me, I guess. Maybe not. Cassie,
I can.
only one with your camera on, so I would appreciate that. That's okay.
All right. So yep, we'll just kick off. Yep. So all right. Hello. Welcome. What can I do to help you today, Linus?
I'll just run through a few more things and then we can kick off. But
Okay.
Thank you so much. So just to get started with Lyrebird, we have a few options up here. The patient name and the patient sex is optional, so you can start a consultation without entering those values. Same as the consultation type, so whether that's in-person, telehealth, or a phone consult, as well as the note template. So if you want to get started with Lyrebird straight away, you don't need to enter any of that information. But if you do enter it, it just makes the notes and documents just that little bit better and they have a little bit more context compared to what you would typically do. So if we also just open down this drop down, we can see there's in-person, telehealth, and phone. So when you're doing a telehealth consultation, just like we are today, you do need to play the sound out of your computer so that the speakers can pick up all of the information going in. So you can't wear headphones, unfortunately, on telehealth. And if you are using a phone, you can just put it on speaker and Lyrebird can listen in the background. If we open Note, you can see that we have 3 templates here, and this differs slightly from field of practice to field of practice. So my account right now is set on general practitioner. So we have a SOAP note, a chief complaint, and a multiple complaints note. I really recommend that you use all 3 just to see which one kind of fits the most. And then once you decide on one, you can do further customization to make it sound exactly like you, whether you want to change the headings or change the content under each heading as well. So we'll just start off with entering none of this information. We'll do a quick telehealth consult here. And then when we hover over the start listing button, we have 2 types. So initial consult and a review consult. initial seeing the patient for the first time, and there's just more emphasis on gathering allergies, gathering things like past medical histories and immunization history. And review is just that little bit more succinct. So that's just a more concise and compressed note, and it's more about linking the changes from the initial consultation to the review consultation. Once we click, we'll just do a quick initial today. And it is really important that you do gather consent from your patients. So for example, if I was the doctor and Cassie was my patient, I would say, is it okay if I record this conversation to write my patient notes? You probably know the patients who will say yes and who will say no. You have an awesome relationship with them and you can use your discernment there. But it is, again, incredibly important that you capture that consent. And before you do, begin recording in the background. Cassie, as soon as I click begin, we'll begin recording.
Linus, can I ask a question?
Of course.
With the initial and review consults, does that still apply, the thoroughness still apply even after you kind of customize a template and tell it what you would like it, whether you want it to be thorough or not?
So that really just applies to our default notes. So if there's any sort of customization, that will kind of recede into the background and your customization will come out in full bloom.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
No worries. So Cassie, if we just jump in quickly, I will just be the patient. Hopefully I'm not too bad of a patient for you.
All right. Hello, Linus. Welcome to our clinic today. How can I help?
So for the past 4 or 5 days, I've just had a really bad headache. It's been getting progressively worse and just got some stabbing pain on the top right, and just not feeling great in general.
My dose is no longer working.
Tell me what else you're noticing. What other symptoms have you got?
So I've got a bit of a sore throat, but not too bad. But I've also got quite a bad cough. And about 4 weeks ago, I also had influenza. So I had to go to hospital for 3 days. And that was not a fun experience for me at all.
No, so I'm sure you're trying to get in and make sure you don't get that unwell again. Yes. So do you feel you completely recovered between your influenza and getting more unwell this week?
A little bit, but I still feel quite run down, pretty tired. Probably been feeling like a 4 or 5 out of 10 for the past 3 weeks.
So the fatigue, the rundown sense has been there for the month, but this week you've got the new headache, the new cough, and feeling a bit worse again. Is that right?
100%.
Yeah,
And
all right.
my mum sometimes has migraines. I've never had a migraine before, but it almost sounds eerily similar.
Okay. Yep. So as you said, the headache on one side, fairly sharp. Tell me more about the features of that headache.
It is stabbing in nature. It gets worse throughout the day. And when I drink lots of water, it's not quite as bad. But it's still, I'm taking currently 2 tablets of Panadol every 6 hours. But it's not really helping that much.
No. Anything else that you've tried?
That's it at the moment. Didn't want to try anything else.
No. And are you having any changes in your vision? Anything that's sort of coming across looking odd shaped or bright lights?
No hallucinations as such, but sometimes when I look to the right, it does get a little bit blurry, which is not something that I've had before.
No. Are you coping with brighter lights and walking outside, or is that bothering your vision?
When it's really sunny, that's definitely a good point. It does get a little bit stimulating and a bit more painful.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Any nausea or vomiting?
No vomiting. And no nausea actually when I think about it.
Yep. And any odd sensations in your arms or your legs, feeling numb or weak, or issues with your speech?
I don't think I am having any issues with my speech at the moment. I had surgery on my left collarbone about 5 years ago, and sometimes around the elbow it feels a little bit strange, but I'm not sure if that's just nerve pain.
Yep, and that's longer standing compared to the headache. Yeah. Is there any other significant past history I should know about?
Nothing significant that I can think of at the moment, no.
Okay. And any regular medications other than taking the Panadol
I've got
currently?
the Ventolin puffer, so I've
Okay.
got asthma, but
So
I only
history of
need to
some
take that if I go for a really long run or something like
Okay.
that.
Yep. And currently, do you feel like you've got any a fever, any chill sweats?
Um, Not for the past 4 nights, but last night I did wake up about 3 a.m. sweating a little bit.
Okay.
That's not something that has happened before, but I don't
No.
feel like I've got a fever or anything
Okay.
like
Yep. And tell me more about the cough.
that. It's not too bad at the moment at all.
Okay.
It just really started the past few days, but it doesn't have any phlegm in it.
Okay.
It's just a bit painful sometimes.
Yeah. And can you remind me again when your headache first started?
It was about 5 days ago.
Okay, so 5 days of a headache, about 3 days of a cough, but it's dry. It's not, I'm sure you've had some nasty chest infections and symptoms with your asthma, so it's not to that point. Anything else like a sore throat, runny nose, sore ears?
Um, Sometimes, yeah, sore throat, definitely.
Yep.
I haven't really had any pain with my ears.
Okay.
Nothing else that I can think of off the top of my head.
Yep. And nothing serious in terms of your work of breathing or feeling like your heart's beating too fast or feeling faint or dizzy, anything like that. No.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, not at the moment.
So, it just to summarize what you've said so far, you've got a 5-day history of a fairly severe headache, which is new for you, also a sore throat and a dry cough on the background of having flu a month ago and really wanting to avoid getting unwell and hospitalized again. You wonder if it could be something like your mum's migraines.
Hmm.
That was, yeah. And is there anything else you're wondering about that you'd like me to address while we're speaking today?
No, not really. Just quite concerned about those headache type of things.
Yeah. So look, while I agree, the sort of that one-sided headache, it can be typical for migraine, but the way for you it's coming about at the same time as the sore throat and the cough, I think it's probably more likely that it is another viral infection, probably not one as severe as influenza. That obviously you're saying you're not feeling that unwell, and it's quite common for viruses like this to hang around for anywhere between 3 and 7 days. So hopefully you're really in the thick of it right now, and it'll start to get better on its own. I think it. Have you ever had any issues with taking anti-inflammatories, with having any gut discomfort or things like that?
Uh, I've had amoxicillin and I didn't have a great reaction to that, but I'm not sure if that's an anti-inflammatory.
Yep. Okay. So wonder about a possible allergy to amoxicillin. No. So I'm just talking about using pain relief for the time being, and see if adding some anti-inflammatories like Nurofen or Voltaren, you can add those in 3 times a day alongside the Panadol, and see if that makes a difference to the your headache symptoms and the sore throat. If you don't start to improve or you get worse in any way, I think a review in person in the next couple of days would be worthwhile, just so we can really give you that face-to-face check and see if it is something else. How does that sound to you?
That sounds perfect. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
no worries. So we'll maximize your pain relief, keep up your fluids, keep resting. Do you need a medical certificate today?
Luckily I am unemployed at the moment, so no
Okay.
worries.
All right. So, yep, and please, how about we even we can pencil in a face-to-face tomorrow or the day after, and if you're improving, you can cancel that. Otherwise, we'll be able to get a look at you in the clinic. How's that sound?
Sounds great. Thank you so
Great.
much.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. I forgot to ask as well if you're a GP. So I
I
apologize.
am.
That's great.
Otherwise, that would have been.
Yeah.
Yep. No, that's fine. Um,
So I just let everyone just read through these slowly.
yeah, I need to make mine bigger. I've lost it somehow.
Well, might be bigger on my end. So again, these notes can be fully customized to the way that you want to write them. And you can also see here that we have bolding in some of the headings. That is kind of a new feature that we've been working on, so I can talk on that later. But does that note look pretty good to you, Cassie?
Sorry, I missed the first bit, but the bottom
sorry,
half looks great. Yeah, no, that's excellent. I did notice the bold. I saw that pop up earlier this week, but it didn't translate into my notes for whatever reason. So I can certainly see the benefit, especially for these acute and initial consults where there's a whole lot of detail and subheadings and things. But for I have a lot of complex regular ones with a lot of mental health, a lot of combined issues that I don't necessarily want to separate into too many. And I've played around with the multiple issues, and I find, so I haven't managed to customize it so it's not too wordy, so it doesn't always have examination and really, just get bogged down in too many words. So anyway, I'm sure you'll be coming to that in customization.
I definitely will be. But just to go through all of the features that we have in the consult page. So as you can see up here, we've got a few actions that you could take from here, whether that's wanting to do a dictation. So that could be dictating a letter, dictating a medical certificate, or dictating a letter back to the GP, for example. And we've also got the ability to write a document. So if we click on write document, we have just a little sidebar here, and we can see that there's a few default documents made for us by Lyrebird. This is set up for a GP, so there's mental health care plan and a letter to a specialist. But for all the other fields of practice, it will be very similar, except instead of a letter to a specialist, it will just say letter to referring clinician. And when we click on some of these, we can just begin generating them. So for example, if we wanted to do one, who could you possibly refer to here, Cassie? I know that you wouldn't probably refer this case to a specialist.
Yeah, so if I guess if he was sounding more unwell, and I might say actually, go straight into emergency. So, and I don't know if there's an ED physician or hospital or.
There's emergency.
Yep, perfect.
Yep. And what we could also do is maybe a mental certificate, maybe I needed a mental certificate. You can also see down here, we have save selections for next time. So if you're writing the same documents every single time, as quite a few specialists are, you can just click that. Then you don't have to select them every single time. So once we click this button, they'll just begin generating. We'll just go through the patient letter. So the patient letter is really great to send something to your patients post-consultation. So you can see here that there's a quick summary of what we talked about, but then there's also a few action items for the patient to take home. And this is just a really nice thing to give to the patient so they don't leave with just a piece of paper with some dodgy handwriting, which is obviously kind of the generalization there. But we can also share this directly back to the patient with an encrypted PDF email. So I just set up a new account just for this. So you have to set a reply to your email address. So if the patient would respond here to you, they want to respond and send an email back to you, not to us. So it's really important that you make sure that that's the correct email. And this is just showing a bit of information on how that works. So for example, if I might not fill this out, but if I was going to send it to myself, I just type in the name, my email address, and it sends an encrypted PDF, password protected with the patient's date of birth. So as long as they can remember their date of birth, they will be able to access that in the email. And it just puts it into a nice PDF that they can read after the consultation. We also have the medical certificate here. You can just put in the start date to the end date. And then we also have the letter to a specialist. So you can see that there's also patient_name here. And if we want to make this a little bit more personalized, all we need to do is just type the name in here and then click this little refresh button, and that will just populate throughout the document. Is that roughly in a structure that you would use to write a referral? Cassie, sorry. Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah. And would that, no, I was just thinking, obviously that's not populating. So usually ours would have a past history of medications would come up in a table, but I guess if if we had those, I'd be copy and pasting that into our pro forma.
100%.
Yeah, it's fairly wordy. So
Yeah.
would it be through editing that it might then get used to it and change it going forward?
So the best place to do that and to get instant results, if it's not working straight away, is just to do customization, which I'll just run through in just a short moment. But I didn't talk about how to get these notes or documents back into your medical record. So they exist in isolation in Lyrebird, and nothing is saved here unless you do click the save button in Lyrebird. So if I just click save, it will then be populating in history after I click out. But to get these notes into your EMR, you just have to click copy notes, and that will be copied into your clipboard, and you can just paste them into the notes section in whatever EMR that you use. And same with the letters. If you save them, they will be populated in history, and you can just copy them to your clipboard and paste them into the templates that you use within your EMR. We also have a resume consult button up here. So I know, especially in general practice, if sometimes a patient says they're completed and then you click finish, and then they start talking about another problem, you can simply just resume the consult, continue the conversation, and once you click stop, they'll have 2 notes generated, one for the previous and one for the existing longer consultation. Before we dive into a few customization things, does anyone have any questions about this consultation, what they've seen so far, or any problems that they might have encountered using Lyrebird so far?
I've also played around with using it from best practice. Obviously, it's embedded within that, and the benefits being that it automatically knows their name, their gender, and you can sort of just click and move it across. But the issue I've found is if I've done anything in best practice, if I've done any actions, which obviously create their own text, this populates in underneath it, and so then there's extra copy and pasting work. Is that typical, or do I need to will it, if you move the cursor up the top, does that not happen? Or
so that was a problem with the first iteration of the integration, but in the new release that will be fixed. So it'll be able to go at the top or the bottom, up to you, a preference.
Sure, and that'll be when best BP's next updated, is that right? Yeah.
And we also have a few pretty awesome updates coming out in that as well. So we'll be expanding on the current functionality there. I did just forget to mention 2 quick items up here. So for example, if the note halfway through your internet stopped and it here, you can actually just easily regenerate the first note just by clicking the refresh icon there. And this will just type out a second note for you. So if there's any problems with the generation, you can easily do that. And if you want, you can also create a note with a different template. So for example, if you accidentally forgot to change it to multiple complaints, if your patient came in with a few complaints, you can do so. And you can also add any context here. So for example, maybe the note got populated with the name John with an H, but the name was actually John without an H. And you can say patient's name was actually John, just as an example. And then once you click generate, it will generate a note with those changes. What you can also do is use this section for learning. So for example, if you really wanted to do, please make it more concise in the subjective section. Oh, section, sorry. You can remember that for next time so that Lyrebird doesn't make the same mistake. And these notes kind of begin to learn from you over time. So once we click generate, we'll just see a note here. It might not work very well with the multiple complaints. And once we scroll here, and that will work like that going forward as well. I can just see there's a few questions. David, would you be able to read out those questions for me? I can't exactly read them.
Yep. So Linda asked if she can toggle her microphone over to a headset microphone for the use in a telehealth consultation. She's currently using her webcam microphone.
If you can change the microphone midway through the consultation?
I think probably just beforehand.
Yeah, so what you can do inside your web browser, whether you're using Chrome or Edge or one of them, there will be a little icon that comes up here where you can change the microphone. We're working on a way where you can select a microphone inside of Lyrebird, so you don't have to do that in the browser. And that will be out in the next week or so. But if we just do a quick resume, or I'm not sure. I'm using a strange browser, so I apologize. you won't be able to see it. But if you use Chrome, for example, there'll just be a little drop down at the top where you can just select the microphone as the input, and you can change that there. Does that help, Linda? David, are there any other questions that I can answer?
Not as of yet. If you do have questions and you don't want to come off mute, feel free to chuck them in the chat there. At the start, we had one just about uploading documents, so we'll go through that.
Yeah, for sure. I might just move on to dictate if anyone, unless there's any other questions before we move on from consultation.
Linus, I haven't been putting the names or sexing because I'm just worried about confidentiality. Is the Lyrebird completely confidential, and I haven't been saving either because I'm worried about that. I just use it fairly anonymously and copy and paste into best practice.
For sure. So we store all of our medical information in Australia, and it's all fully encrypted as well. So as a company, we run penetration tests every 6 months. So that's other companies testing our systems to see if they're robust enough and fall under the app compliance. And nothing is saved in Lyrebird unless you do click the save button. So for example, if we, as you said, don't save and we just copy instead, nothing will persist inside of Lyrebird. And that's a personal choice if you don't feel comfortable using a platform like this. But we have quite a few doctors who do save to history. And nothing really to add there. Everything is also stored in Sydney. And no one has access to that information unless they really need it. So you as clinicians obviously have access to your own notes. And they're fully decrypted, so none of us can see them as well.
And with the save note, how long is it saved for?
So by default, when you create an account in Lyrebird, that's just 7 days. You can increase that number up to 6 months, or you can decrease it for as little as 24 hours. So it'll be fully wiped from our system. There will be no residual data anywhere, and that'll be completely destroyed after those.
And there's no like third party or anything that patient information goes to or anything like that?
We do use third parties for some of our generation. So for example, our AI here, but we have data processing agreements in place so they can't access that data or view it at any time. And again, that data all stays within the shores of Australia. So I'm not sure if you might have seen, there's a few other providers who send their information overseas, and they're not kind of compliant with Australian regulation laws. So that's number one for us, is security and privacy at Lyrebird.
And Cassie was saying she uses like where it's linked to best practice. I haven't done that. I've only been using Lyrebird and copy and pasting. So there is a version where it's like linked to best practice.
Yeah, so as part of best practices, latest update, the SP2 release, there's now a Lyrebird button inside of best practice. And when you click that button, Lyrebird fills out this information, the sex as well, and then you don't have to copy paste. You just need to click save to Lyrebird. And we also push back observations, so blood pressure, pulse, directly into the observation section in best practice as well.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay, thank you.
No worries. I'll just move on to dictate. I am conscious of time because I'd really love to get through customize and help you guys get the notes and documents that you really want. I'll just quickly run through dictate. I won't do a mock dictation, but we have two types of dictation. So we have a direct dictate, which is exactly like Dragon or another one of those transcription services that you might have used. So that basically takes what you say word for word. So hello, blah, 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 blah. And what you can do in there is you can say, hello, Dr. John, comma, new line, and you can use it as dictation service. So exactly like Dragon Medical One, if you've used that before. And we also have the smart dictate option where you can either choose to write anything. So for example, what you might do there is say to Lyrebird when it begins listening, I want to write a referral letter to a radiologist for my patient who is presented with boom, 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 boom. And you don't need to do any formatting in the way that you speak to Lyrebird. Lyrebird will do all the heavy lifting for you and put it into a structure that you think is really great. And you can also dictate into a document. So for example, if we wanted to dictate into a letter back to the referring clinician, all you need to do is just spit out all the information that you captured during that consultation. And again, Lyrebird will do all the formatting for you. So you don't need to dictate like you would with Dragon Medical One. Has anyone had the chance to use Smart Dictate or Direct Dictate throughout the trial yet?
I've tried to use it for meetings.
Oh,
So we had a meeting and we all said our names and did like a meeting agenda, and it kind of could recognize our voices and then would put different headings under our names. But I stopped it after 10 minutes just to check it was working. It was working and it was great. And then I restarted it, and then the meeting went on for over an hour and there was 6 of us and it couldn't handle that, because I know it's not really set up for that. So
yeah.
it'd be really useful for that.
That it is something we're exploring a little bit. And what you can do in the short term is you could just click on write anything and say, I'm recording a meeting with my fellow clinicians. Please write meeting notes with these headings, for example. And it should be able to do a decent job. But it's probably not its main purpose, so it might not be amazing at that, if that's all good.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions before I move on to the customization in Lyrebird and showing you how you can do notes and documents? Awesome. So as part of Lyrebird, we enable you to do full customization on your notes and documents, and you can access that just by clicking the Customize button up here. So you can see that we're presented with a submenu here where we have General, Note Templates, Document Templates, Macros, and Replace Forever. With General, this is just selecting the default note template that you want to use and comes up as the first option in the consultation. So you can just select the one that you want. And for those telehealth and phone consultations, you can leave a sign-off, because I know sometimes that it is required in certain states. So you can just type that in, it will be inserted at the bottom of your notes. And this is a new feature that we have. So you can bold the headings, as you might have seen just in that presentation that I just did, or you can leave it off so it doesn't bold the headings. You can also now italicize and underscore certain characters in Lyrebird just by clicking Control-U, Control-B, or Control-I, just the way that you would on Word. I can show that as well, just in a moment. With our note templates, has anyone had the opportunity throughout their trial to do any customization at all? It generally helps to work on kind of an example where someone hasn't quite got what they want. Cassie, I can see you have your hand up.
Yeah, so I don't necessarily want all of the sections. So with the review, I got rid of all of the past history, current meds, allergies, and things like that. I guess with it's still sort of going examination, no examination done. Is it possible? Can you do it so that it just doesn't mention it if you haven't mentioned it, or?
Yeah, for sure. Which one do you typically use for that?
I mainly have been using multiple presenting complaints. Yeah. And the other thing I'd love to customize is that the plan comes out, it doesn't split it into every issue. Could it all just be planned? Because often there's overlap. Yeah.
No worries. I can quickly show you how to do that. And if anyone has any questions, especially with customization, because I know that sometimes it can be a little bit complex, please ask them during this time. I want to help as many of you as possible. But what we can do, I'll just quickly run through the customization in itself. You can see on the left-hand side, we have a few sections, and this is how Lyrebird breaks up each individual heading inside the notes. You can also see on the right-hand side, we have a preview of a note. So what you can do is do customization here, and you can do a quick preview in here, so your feedback loop of making the notes better is a lot faster. So we might just write a quick one, and it will come up with, if you save any notes in Lyrebird, you'll be able to access them. So you can customize on notes that you would have done with previous patients. So just as an example, those stars there are because we're using the bolding. So that's the bolding syntax to make it work. So for example, as Cassie said, maybe for the plan, we want to split it out into multiple. So all the 1, 2, and the 3 there, instead of just plunking it all into one section. So what we would do is we would head into the plan section. And when we open up the plan section, you can see that we can rename the heading as well. So perhaps you don't want plan, but you want next steps. And you can rename that to absolutely anything that you want. You can also hide this section. So for example, if you don't want to even show next steps or the plan in your notes at all, you can just click hide. and that will just not populate in the notes for next time.
Oh yeah.
And so in order to do, as Cassie said, that customization, you need to do what is called prompting to Lyrebird. So that's telling our AI exactly what to do. And you can kind of think of that about that as a person, and you want to be as explicit and clear as possible. And use a lot of forceful language. So it might sound a little bit strange, but you want to say you must do this or you should never do X. And that will really get the message across to our AI and will help it do the exact customization that you need. In the length of section, that's really just a breakdown of concise, normal, or detailed. I know for some of you want to write the most concise notes possible, but for some of you need a lot of comprehensive detail in some aspects of the notes. So for example, psychiatrists and psychologists obviously need a lot of information around mental health that was talked about, and they don't want that summarized at all. The longer button there will give you that functionality. But if we were going to split out the plan section, how I would approach this is just think about what you want the end state to be. So for example, that's splitting it out into the 3 headings or however many multiple complaints there are. So as an example, I'll just type it out.
So I'm actually getting the opposite happening. Mine tends to try to give me, 3 different ones, probably because people bring up 10 things in one consult. But yeah,
all of the sections in just one.
Yeah, so say I might say plan. Maybe you must combine. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I really haven't done many of the prompts. I saw that on the web, blog intro thing, but I guess just haven't had a chance.
Yeah, of course. We also have a lot of really great documentation here to help you get the most out of it and examples that we can send after this quick video. But we'll just check and see if that worked. So you can see they didn't do a great job here. So it continued without the sections. So I obviously didn't do a great job at prompting just then. So for example, you could say you have a tendency to split out these sections into the multiple complaints.
Okay.
Just a minute.
Absolutely.
Sorry, Diana, did you have a question?
Oh, no. Oh, good.
I'll just rename that to plan. Sometimes this just requires a little bit of fiddling and just getting that exact right tone. But again, we have examples in our documentation that you can use, so you don't have to do all of the hard work yourself. So you can see there that it then combined them all under the plan, and you can see that it didn't split them out. So being, as I said, really thoughtful, if you can, works. And it does just require a little bit of trial and error. So perhaps it might not work the first time, but I promise that you definitely can get the output that you want.
I haven't actually seen the preview come up. I always just see it blurred over. So is that because you've still got that one open, or you'd saved? Yeah, I guess I haven't been saving the consult, so I had one to play around with. Is that right?
Yeah. So there's also the mock patient. So that just uses a random transcript and can help you get started if you don't have any in there. Or you can use your saved ones.
Yes, it was just too straightforward.
100%.
None of my patients have one issue.
Sure. Does anyone have any questions about customizing notes before I move on to global preferences and the settings section there?
Can I ask something, Linus?
Of course.
I'm a psychologist, and as you mentioned before, I've been playing around customizing a few things and experimenting with it. And I want different things at different times, which is fine. I can manage having multiples. One of the things that I'm not sure how to get, and you might be able to help with, is what I would normally do is pretty much I can touch type, and I would just touch type as I'm talking to somebody, and I can engage, and so I'm getting a condensed version of the conversation, but without all the ums and ahs and the things that I deem irrelevant. So And I'm not quite sure how to get it to do that. I have managed to get it to do the whole thing as like a script that you would switch between people, but not with the condensing down to meaningful, just little snippets of like a summary of the meaning of what they've said, or including lots of quotes. I can get it to force it to do some more quotes than it was doing, but I'm wanting it to summarize rather than present a summary that it talks about it being a summary, just presenting the conversation as it happened.
Yeah, Jack, I found the exact same thing
Yeah.
when you just want to do more of the big picture comment on what's happening. Yeah.
So you're finding that it's maybe painting a bit of a narrative when it just needs to put in the exact kind of output or the exact conversation.
It looks like it's wanting to present it as a medical summary.
Yep.
And even if I take out all the headings and everything, you know, I want it to be as concise as possible, saying something like, open quote, I went to my mum and dad's and mum threw a pot at my head, and end quote, and then my response.
So like a transcript.
What they had for dinner kind of thing. I don't know if it's even possible.
Okay, so I think I understand that it might not be including things that are relevant to your consultation, or not the things that you are thinking are the most relevant that need to be included in the notes. Is that kind of on the right track?
Like, sorry, I didn't understand what you said.
Is the problem that it's more including things that you don't think are particularly relevant?
But it's also overly summarizing.
Overly summarizing.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a really great intro into global preferences. So this is something that applies to the whole note structure. So for example, if you're facing the problem of over summarization, and it not being comprehensive enough for you to get actual use out of the notes, what you could write is, you must never
You've misspelled right. It might not like that, Linus.
Oh, I apologize. And then what you could write here is as a psychologist, or as a psychiatrist. And that just helps give it a little bit more context and helps her understand why you want that information. It sounds a little bit strange, but the more context you can give it to help will essentially make a better note.
Okay.
Do you think that will help you, or have I missed the mark on that one?
I think that might. I haven't played around with global preferences. I think in the sections, I might need to ask it to only, like, I wouldn't mind having one template that just consisted of quotations.
Yep.
Of both people as a conversation, like you would read a play script.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully avoiding a lot of the irrelevancies.
Yeah. So
I'm not sure how to tell it what's irrelevant or not.
Yeah, I kind of know what you mean. And have you tried adding a section and renaming it to perhaps quotations exactly as you said?
No.
So what you can do is you can add a section into these notes, and you can just drag and drop it wherever you want. So for example, quotations in this case. And then what you need to do is just write instructions here. So this isn't a default section, so you do need to give it as much information as possible. So if in the case we wanted to get quotations, We could say you must and then you could just give it a little bit more context and examples about what you think would be relevant and what you think would be irrelevant. So for example, you could say conversations about what they had for dinner as an example would be irrelevant, whereas XYZ would be incredibly relevant and you must include this every single time.
Okay. Yeah, I'll play around with that.
And so what helps as well is just clicking the longer bit there so that it doesn't make it a little bit more detailed in that.
Okay. By the way, I just wanted to say that I've had some interesting outcomes with, asking it to present, adding a section at the bottom for a particular psychotherapeutic lens, so CBT or schema therapy, and asking it to provide quotes from the patient to support its analysis according to that lens, and it's been pretty interesting. And it misses the mark, sometimes gets it pretty wrong, but it's a very advanced thing to ask it to do, and sometimes it's really helpful.
Interesting. I haven't heard of that use case, so that is definitely interesting. Cool. Does anyone have any questions before I just quickly jump into the rest of global preferences and then into document templates?
Linus, what I was going to add as well is if you guys found that your notes weren't following the structure and you wanted it to work for that note itself, the retry during, like if you click the retry or plus and then add some extra context into that text box there, that would help it. So if you did a note and it didn't work, maybe, I don't know if you saved it to your history, Linus, and just want to show how to do that.
Yes.
Excuse me?
Yep.
Yeah, Linus, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I'm a psychiatrist. So I see a lot of workers' compensation patients.
Mm-hmm.
So for them, it's very important to include the chronological events, like when the incidents happened and when exactly their symptoms began, and then what exactly happened. So as Dr. Jack said, it's over summarizing the things and not including these important events, because for the workers' compensation, it's kind of like for medical and legal purposes, we need those incidents and events in a particular order.
100%.
And sometimes including some certain quotations of what they have spoken to and who they have spoken to and what happened and how they have felt, and particularly about how they felt, because those are, again, they constitute certain things, like they say they were bullied, harassed, or they were belittled, and that kind of things are very important. But it seemed to be missing, even though I've done a few, but I didn't do as forcible as you have done. So maybe I have to do some forcible instructions, but it's still over summarizing, and then the whole thing is coming in like one big paragraph.
Yep.
Rather than in kind of like how the events have happened and how it led to their injury. So that would be helpful if we can,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, thank you.
So for example, I might just do this in the family history section, which won't this is purely representative, and I can just show you what you could write in there to get that exact outcome as you said. So just to first tackle the chronological order, what you could say is, as a psychiatrist completing workers' compensation forms, this section must detail the events. Would it be leading up to a certain event?
Yep.
To I'll just say end event. And it must be in chronological order for me to correctly assess and write comprehensive documentation. So that should cover something like that should cover the chronological order problem that you're having. And then what you could do for the over summarization is that you could write something like I wrote below for the quotations. So for example, in these, oh, sorry about that. In these events, you So you could also give it a bit of warning about what you might have to do if it doesn't do a certain action, which sounds again very strange, but if you treat it like it is a human and really kind of force it into a corner, it can produce really great output. As well, we also run one-on-one demos where we can help you get exactly the output that you want if you're having a bit of trouble doing it yourself. So we can, after this, send you all the link on how to book in those, because I know those can be really helpful and this perhaps might not provide enough information. And we can help you get exactly the output that you're looking for. So something like that should be a really great starting point for you. And then you can kind of just do a few more trial and errors there to get to that end state that you want.
Okay, thank you.
No worries. We do have a few settings here as well. So if you want to show this consult note for an initial review or both, you can just do that. And there's a description and a field of practice, which you shouldn't need to change. Just moving on to the document templates. But before we do, does anyone have any questions about note templates that I might have missed or anything that would be helpful for me to cover at all?
Can you make it add date and time automatically? Because I added those fields and it keeps giving me the wrong information.
That's something we're working on now. I know that seems quite basic, but what we will do is allow you to add variables, if that makes sense. So you just add the variable of the date and time, and you could also add a variable of the clinic, the patient's name and things like that as well. That will be coming out really soon. You can also create your own note template from scratch. So if none of those options there provided the exact thing that you wanted, you could easily just create one just by clicking this create a new note template section. And once we just fill these out, that just gives us an empty template here where we can just add as many sections as we want and we can build one up from scratch. And that means that it's not taking any of the Lyrebird default templates or sections at all, and you can really customize it to exactly what you need. So those of you who need maybe 10 or 20 note templates, this can be a really great place to start. And you can just, again, do the previews so that you can get that exact output that you want over time.
So my colleague has been using this a bit. She did a Mirena insertion and metabolic consult, and essentially had copied her autofill from best practice and just put it in its own section. And she said it was working quite well. So that's what I aim to do tomorrow. I've done the same. Is that the most straightforward way to use that, or is that what a macro is supposed to be?
I can
prompts.
I can go through macros in a second. Macros are meant to be things that you have to type that are the same every single time.
Okay.
You can use them in the notes, or you can use them as a macro as you traditionally. We also are working on the ability to soon be able to share note templates with each other. So for example, Cassie, you mentioned that your friend had a really great one. Instead of you also doing the work as well, she would just be able to click a share button and you'd be able to copy that into.
Yeah, because obviously currently we share those in best practice within the clinic. So,
and so just moving on to document templates, you can actually see we have a community section and a shared section. So if I wanted to share this medical certificate, also it's a default one, so I can't share it, but they would just be able to share it. And you can also access a ton of documents templates in here, and soon a lot of document note templates as well. And you can just duplicate them into your account. And this is the, sorry.
Keep going.
Oh no, I was just going to dive into the document template section. So for example, with this letter to referring clinician, this is a default letter template in Lyrebird. So you can see that there's no sections here. But what we really recommend you do if you do need any more documents, as I'm sure a lot of you do, is you can actually go through a process here to upload one of your own documents. So if we just run through this, for example, we might do letter to a oncologist. We can choose the type, so that's obviously a letter. We can add the intended recipient, so that would be an oncologist. And then we're prompted to actually upload a few PDFs or Word documents of what we've done. So in this process, Lyrebird redacts all the information out. So you don't need to do that redaction before you upload them into here. And then we're able to analyze them, essentially understand how you write them and what language and tone that you use. And then we're able to generate those headings and sections for you individually. So I don't have any off the top of my computer, unfortunately. I can just see if I have any, just to show you as an example. Oh. Apologies for going through all of my files.
We can't see your screen. I mean, there are files. Right.
Oh, okay, that's probably a good thing. Oh, I can't do that one. But what I really recommend you do is just do that, and then you can do the exact same customization on your letters in the same way, or documents, reports, workers' compensation forms as well there. And that will be in exactly the same format as note templates. So you'll have the sections on the left and you'll be able to create the preview on the right-hand side. And the same prompting principles apply there. So just being as forceful as possible. Does anyone have any questions about document templates, getting things working there, or anything that I can help with that I might have missed?
The community and shared, is that the new feature, or is that one that's coming? Because I don't see it, or do you have to be on the full thing? Because I don't see it on my trial.
I can see it on mine. It's got a lot of templates. It's actually really good.
Yeah, they should all be there.
Hang on, document templates. Yes, sorry, I was in note template. Yep. So
they've got ADHD. They've got a whole range of them there. It's good.
Yeah, so these are all created by the Lyrebird community. So all the doctors using us can create these and upload them. And what you can do is filter by your field of practice. For example, we might just do general practitioner, and we can see that there's a few here. And what we could do is just do a quick preview. We can look at what a example one might be. And then we can try the template on that mock patient and see what the output might be like for us. We could also easily share this. So for example, if you find a really great one that you want to share with your friend or fellow clinician, you can just click the button and that will copy that link to your clipboard. And you can also add it to your account. So before you add it to your account, you can change the title. You can change the type if you want to. So that will now just be populated here as a referral to specialist. And now we can see all of the sections. So you can see that the documents are slightly more complex. We just have one extra row. And so here you can change the sentence structure from paragraph all the way up to numbered. So for example, if you have a plan, you might have a numbered plan that you might send to the specialist, just as an example. And you can really get a lot of customization out of here in exactly the same way that you would with the notes. You can also choose to include introduction as a heading. So if we just run this, you can see that it's just a heading there. And if we just remove these, let me just test that out. You can see that it didn't put the heading in that time. We have the same global personalization. So if you want to apply anything to the entire letter, for example, you might want to make this more concise because it does seem a little bit wordy. You might say, you must be incredibly concise. You write this letter. And you can also use concise language down here. So instead of prompting it as I just did, you can just turn that on or off. So when we do one here, you can see that that's just slightly more concise there. Although everything is heaped into this section, which probably means that this personalized section with the patient's conditions is asking for a lot of detail, or it's detailing a lot of different things into one section. Again, that works in exactly the same way as the note templates do. Does anyone have any questions or need any help with document templates at all, anything that can help you prompt to get to a certain outcome? Awesome. Really recommend that you do check out the community section here. And if you do create a organization in Lyrebird, what you can do is also share them to your organization. So for example, if you want to have shared documents between your clinicians, you can easily do that and share them between each other as well. Just to move into macros. So macros are just an easy way to essentially just paste in a whole bunch of text. So how we can create a macro is just by clicking new. I might just write test. So the way that we would access it is just by clicking test, and the content might be, this is a test macro. Once we create that, we can see that it's just in here, and we can edit that again just by clicking the little pen, or just we can delete it by clicking the delete button. And I can show you how to use these. So for example, if we are to open up this record here, just delete everything. The way that you access a macro is by clicking /, and then you can see that it appears here. So if you have multiple, you can actually filter them out by writing what the starting letters are. And then to access them, you just click enter, and it will paste in exactly what you have. So we have some doctors who have around 50 or 60 of these, and that filtering section is really helpful because then they can just easily find the correct one. And you can also create macros directly from the notes that you've generated. So for example, if you've written just in here, patient consented to all examinations, just as an example, you can actually highlight that line of text, right click, and then click create macro. So for example, I might just call that consent. And then once we click /, we can also see that it's there, and that will enter. That is one thing that I just missed. So for example, if you can see mistranscribed words, so in the case of Pandol, which can happen when sometimes Lyrebird gets drug names wrong, it might get acronyms wrong, it might get names wrong, you can just highlight that incorrectly spelled word, right click, and you can see that first we're presented with a few spelling suggestions, but you can also replace forever. So for example, Panadol is the correct spelling here instead of Pandol. And once we click enter, it is replaced here, but Lyrebird also remembers how to spell that and how to attribute that to something that has been said in the consultation. And so once you do that over time, you'll build a really good base for Lyrebird to know you much, much better. And it will mean that it just makes less mistakes. You can also see here we have replace once. So for example, if it incorrectly spells a patient name, you can replace that patient name throughout the document. And we can also do formatting. So as I had mentioned before, we can do bolding, italics, or underline just here. We also have all of the other functions like cut, copy, paste, and select all.
So is this, if a patient has a partner with an unusual name and Lyrebird gets it wrong, do I go into notes and do that with it and correct it?
Yeah. So for example, if in here it incorrectly spelt my name as Linux as an example, and you'd already clicked this and it wasn't working, what you could do is just highlight Linux, right click, replace once, and just type in the correct spelling. And once you click enter or click the replace button, it will just replace that spelling throughout all of the entire document.
What about the
replace forever?
Sorry?
Replace forever.
The consult transcription.
Or if it's incorrect in the transcript. Do you have an example?
Well, in the transcript, it's written Linus as Linux every time.
Oh, in the transcript. Oh, so you have the transcript tab just here.
Yeah.
That you're referring to. We don't actually have that, unfortunately, at the moment. That's a really good idea. We should definitely add that into the transcript section.
But if you did it if you replaced it once in your note section, it would transfer when you write a letter into the letter section.
Okay.
Yeah.
And similarly, if you copied the section of the transcript that it spelt it incorrectly and paste it into the notes, then you could use replace once there.
Oh,
If that makes sense. It's a bit hard to visualize without looking at it.
okay. I'll play around with it.
For sure. And if I know that it is past time, but I'm more than happy to go through a few other things in here as well. But those replace forever changes that you've made appear here. So if you accidentally do one, you can easily delete it. Or if you know that there's a few other ways that Lyrebird has incorrectly spelled Panadol, for example, you can easily add them. So maybe it does Panda as an example, and it will just add that and replace that every single time. Does anyone have any questions about what I just covered then before I move on to preferences and some of the new features and functionality that we have coming out soon? Awesome. So you can access preferences by just clicking on the settings button and then into the preferences section. You can see here at the top, we have when should Lyrebird delete saved items. So by default, as mentioned earlier, Lyrebird deletes all of the items that you choose to save in here after 7 days. That can be reduced down to 24 hours or as much as 6 months before Lyrebird periodically deletes that information. And again, once it is deleted, you can't get it back at all because it's completely destroyed and wiped off our database. We can also save the dictation audio. So for example, if you have a typist or an admin team who like to listen back to the dictations, anytime you dictate, we would save that audio file, again, just for that set period of time, and you can listen back to that, or your admin staff can do that as well. For those of you who like to see the words typing out in the dictation as you do it, you can actually just turn that on here, and I'll just show you what this looks like really quickly. You can see here we have a small bar, and Lyrebird will soon begin to just type out exactly what I say here. It will look a little bit funny. The first time it comes out, it might not be incredibly accurate, but once we click stop, it'll just do a little bit of AI processing here and output that. We just head back to the preferences. As Dr. Jack was mentioning before, you can also output the transcript of the conversation. So if you want to view and go back on the entire conversation, you can do that, and that would appear as a tab right here. So you can see that we have the entire transcript available from that entire conversation, and that allows you to go back and you can check anything that you might have forgotten during the consultation, or you can easily copy that out into a different document if you need to. This is a best practice integration preference here. And we have 2 new features coming out tomorrow, and they should actually be accessible in your account now. We have an auto save. So if you do save your documents every single time, instead of having to click that button repeatedly, Lyrebird will just begin to save everything by default into the back end. I'll show you that really quickly, just here. So you can see that it is saving up here. We've got the little green dot, and then when we make edits, it'll go orange, and it will take a second just to save there. You don't have to click save again or update. And you can see there's also no save button down here. So if we were just to make any edits, orange and then green, that means it's saved. And when you click back, that will all be saved there. For those documents, oh, sorry, Dr. Jack.
Can I just suggest as one of about 8 to 12% of Caucasian men with red-green colour vision deficiency, it'd be great if you entertain the concept of some other combinations besides orange and green.
100%. I will take that back to our engineering team. That's a very good point. Definitely oversight on our end. But any that you do start without a name will just appear in history as unnamed, just there, as you can see. So that's one really great thing that's coming out tomorrow morning, and you can just, again, turn that on by going to settings, preferences, and just toggling that on. And then we also have upcoming patients, which is a new thing. So for example, if you have an admin team or you just want to fill out all of your patients for the day so you don't have to type their names in or their sex in in between consults, you can actually click add patient up here. So if we just click on upcoming patient, we can type in the patients that you're going to see for the day. So just as an example. And once we add these, they'll appear in our consult and our history, and you can just drag and drop them in the order that you're going to see them. So if I'm going to see this test first, I would have that at the top. And if I'm going to see this test last, I would have them at the bottom. And you can easily drag just like that. Once we click add, we can see that they're here. And if we head to consult, you can see that they're now on the left-hand side. And so when we click on each of these, it populates all of the information, and we can just click begin and then quickly do that. And if we just do a quick test, once you click next, you no longer actually have to type in the name, and you're ready to go for the next consultation straight away. And you can just, again, click start and you'll be good to go. And this is just a little bit more efficient in between patients, and you can do it at the start of the day and just upload them all. So there's no typing in between consults. Does anyone have any questions about that at all? The upcoming patients or the autosave? Awesome. And for those of you who might want to type in a bit of context before the consultation, you can actually show the notepad pre-consult. So if you go into consult, you can open that up and type in any information that you might want to be in the notes or be helpful for you before that consultation starts. And then you can close it if you want to as well. That probably concludes this session. Thank you all so much for your time, and I'm happy to take any questions now or provide any help in any way that I can. But please just shout out. Can we get a copy of the recording to, yeah, we will send a recording of this webinar, and we'll also send you an email with a few links to some really great articles for customization. And you'll see an email coming out from us tomorrow morning around those feature updates. We have a few other cool and exciting things that are coming out as well. Hallex integration, we are chatting with them at the moment, so fingers crossed. Same as Genie as well, for those of you who use Genie or Gen 2. Was there any other questions that any of you might have had, or any way I can be helpful? I know
Can I train it to recognize my voice anyway?
So that's what the replace forever can be really great at. Are you referring to dictation specifically?
No, for consults.
Are you finding that it's not getting spelling right at all, or is it not discerning between you and your patient?
Yeah, so sometimes it won't discern correctly between me and my patient because I tend to use limited sharing to normalize, lots of to depathologize things, and so it'll hear me talking about a problem I've had and how I've dealt with it, and then it will say the person said they had this problem. It's clearly me. I just have to go and edit them, which is fine. But I just thought, whether there was a way of saying, cueing it by saying that I'll say a certain thing at the first, I don't know if there's any way.
What we would say usually in this case is you can signpost it. So you could say, I as this like psychologist, psychiatrist, but that's obviously a little bit awkward in your consult. What we're working on right now in Lyrebird is a thing called diarization. So detecting if it's you speaking or your patient speaking, and having essentially like speaker one or patient one and clinician one, and especially where you have more than one person in the room, that can be really tricky. And so that will hopefully be coming out soon, and it will just make your notes that much better.
That'll be awesome.
Stay tuned on that one.
If you've got a family or a couple, be fantastic.
100%. Thank you for bringing that up. That's really handy. And especially that orange and green thing. That's a really good point.
Nice.
Definitely be able to change that one. Do you have any ideas of what we should change it to?
Preferably high contrast stripes, but shapes are better than colors, basically.
Yeah, it could just be a little loader and then go solid when it's done. Awesome.
Can I just ask Linus, I've only got a few days left of the trial and really haven't felt I've been able to utilize it. I had sent an email on Monday and haven't heard back about a possible extension. Do you know if that could be followed up?
Yeah, I'll be able to follow that up straight after this.
Thanks. Great.
No worries. Thank you for letting me know. Yeah, I'm sorry about you not getting a response.
Oh, I just remembered something. Is it not possible to throw in previous notes which are, how would you throw in previous notes which are essentially transcriptions of sessions and then ask it to do something with it?
Or do you want to and then create documents out of it?
Then create, yeah, and then see what it's got to do, see what it'll do with the notes and documents, yeah.
Awesome. So if you just head to history, you can click existing patient. And so what you can do is just add a patient essentially. And what you can do is you can paste in the patient notes here, and then you can generate notes off the back of that or just resume the consult. So what you could do, for example, is paste in that whole transcript of that conversation, click resume, and then it would take in those notes of that paste in as context, and you can continue that conversation.
Okay.
We're also working on the ability to upload an audio file if, for example, you might ever record a session and create notes and documents out of that. That's only clinicians.
Okay.
I'm not sure. Would that be helpful at all? Like this section here?
I think so. So if what I pasted in there was essentially a transcription of a session, it would just manage it like it would if I gave it an audio file, but it would do it based off the text.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And then you can again just do documents straight off the back of that if you need to.
Beautiful.
Awesome. How are you finding it? It'd be great to hear if you have any feedback as well and how we can make it more helpful or better, or save you more time as well.
It's been so great. I think it just helps the mental load, just having to less multitasking, like taking a history, building rapport, making sure it can be documented medical legally, and you can concentrate on the patient and the plan and the diagnosis, not having to worry about writing. Yeah, it's really good.
Awesome.
How long has it been around for?
So we launched in February last year. So not very long.
Okay. And how long had you been working on it before then?
Sorry, we were working on it since February last year and we launched it in about June last year.
Oh my goodness. And you're not medical at all? Medical background or?
I don't have a medical background. I wanted to go into medicine, but went down the computer science path, but we have a full team of medical advisors who we are always talking to. And these conversations as well are incredibly helpful. Because we don't want to make any assumptions of things that you think that we think that you should have. And we want to take a lot of the way that we build product and the way that we build these services is obviously taking your voice and putting that into the product if we can.
Yeah, it's been so good. Like it spells everything that's medical correctly so far.
Awesome.
But like even rare conditions, it will spell it correctly, which has been incredible.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it's very good.
You miss transcriptions here and there, but using that replace forever and also doing a few bit of editing as well can really help it get just that much better.
And I imagine it will just go like bushfire through hospitals because it's just so good for ward, like it'll be good for ward rounds and everything.
100%. No, we're working now with the Gold Coast University Hospital, doing a trial.
Okay.
Really exciting, and hopefully an app coming soon as well.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah,
Appreciate
thank you. Thanks for creating it.
All good.
Oh, I do have a question. I was going to tell you how I've been going with it, but I do have a question about microphone quality. I've been using high high definition Logitech webcam microphone, and it seems to be doing a pretty good job. But George Marshall, who you might know from Total Health, I work there 2 days a week, and yeah, he's just fantastic. And he said he bought a conference mic, you know, to putting on the tables, and he thought it did a better job. Do you have any advice on microphones?
Yeah, we can put that in an email after this. There's one that we recommend. It's just like the best kind of mix between cost and quality. With microphones, you can obviously go all the way, but we don't really need to. So there's it's a $65 microphone from JB Hi-Fi. That's perfect. Right. I'll put that link in the email.
And is it bi-directional or?
So it just sits on the on your table, or you can carry it around.
Yeah, the key with the microphones, it actually, I think what we've found is the more expensive they get, sometimes they're not even better, because the more expensive ones are made for podcasting and things like that, where you want really crisp audio, but you're talking really closely to the microphone. And you guys need something that's longer distance, multi-directional, and it doesn't need to be super good at a really close range. So the one that we've got, I think 3 or 4 that we can suggest, and they're more like conference mics, and they just pick it up. But yeah, it's a really interesting thing to discuss, I guess, or do some research in for us, is if a microphone makes a huge difference and where it stops making a big difference.
Yeah, because I initially tried it on my iPad, the microphone did not work at all, and I got a 5-minute consult really from an hour. So, and I just want to say that I've been pretty impressed with it. I tried Heidi for 7 days before this, and I don't know if I got better at customizing or this is a better product, but I've just got better outcomes with you guys. Plus, you're Australian, and if George Marshall reckons you're awesome, then you're probably awesome.
Which is awesome.
I have actually, it's adding a bit of work at the moment for me, because what I would normally do is sit there and touch type during the session and maybe add a sentence or 2 at the end, but probably not. And have a longer session with them actually. But now I'm having to tidy up afterwards, and I'm not cutting my session times down, which I may need to do. Just not in the habit of it. So I guess just the learning curve, and I have to have a different, because I'm not using best practice, having to have a different workflow.
100%.
Yeah.
We're working pretty hard on that Galaxy, just trying to get them over the line. But I think that would definitely be something that's really handy.
Okay.
As well as pulling all your patients for the day, so then you don't have to do any of the typing of the names and things like that.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Lovely work, guys.
No, thank you so much. Say hello to George for me.
Yeah.
I use it's a $99 multi-directional microphone from JB Hi-Fi. That's like a little square box, and that's been really good. Like, it's been picking up everything. And then I'm a GP, and at the end of the consult, me and my patients, our favorite bit is when we press generate transcripts, and we just both watch it as it comes, and then we proofread it together and change some of the things. But sometimes there's quite amusing things that have popped out, and then I usually print it off, so they've got the plan that's in a bullet point, which is great, and then they tick it off as they do the things I've asked, and it's really clear with like where's the feedback, when's the follow-up, and etc. So that's been really, really good.
How do you print it?
Yeah, it's great. I print it, I copy it into best practice, and then print off that page.
Would it be helpful if you could print from Lyrebird, or is it not necessary?
Well, I'm going to try. I haven't tried that button in best practice yet, but that sounds good. The thing with best practice, I trust, like, that's the way the patient record is. So I just feel more comfortable, like, everything being in best practice, and because it's just saved there and it's just on our server kind of thing. So like, if I print things, then there's a record, or it's printed, etc., all in best practice kind of thing.
Yeah, 100%. We also have some cool functionality, like pushing back to past medical history, and allergies, and also pulling information as well from best practice as part of that interview. So that'll be coming out soon.
And yeah, the meeting one and case conferences would be great, because we often do, like with work cover, we'll have several different providers. So a meeting option would be great, because that's always so tedious keeping minutes for meetings.